love when they really go to town on that solo. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Dateline New Haven, WNHH-FM. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make the Elm City tick. Well, nothing ticks better than Pundit Friday, which is to begin here in the studio with the number one pundits in the media universe. Babs Rawls-Ivy is representing her gender today, an International Women's Day at Gateway, so we're all going to send our love to her while we try to soldier on without her. But we do have the queen of quippery and quintessence of compassion, La Voz Hispana publisher Norma Rodriguez Reyes. Good morning,
¿Qué
Norma.
pasa?
Sitting in the Babs chair. You feel like more
Babs
enlightenment?
chair. No, these are definitely shoes I can't fit here.
Heavy D. Donald Trump devotee and WNHA station manager magician Harry Droz is working the controls from home because he has a setup where he can operate us from even abroad. So good morning, Harry. We got Markeisha Ricks, the flyest news hunter-gatherer this side of Fleet Street.
Welcome back.
Yes, welcome back home.
And
glad to be home.
Also in the studio, we have the just-in-time judge of Jackals and Jaybreed, the sentinel of serenity, sincerity, and salvation, the poobah of unparalleled political passion and perspicacity. He's the righteous reaper of restitution, the griot of the grassy knoll, the conquistador of cussing criminals, keeper of the cure, weaver of wellness and wisdom, mellifluous and meritocratic miner of melody, the plow driver of peace, the driver out of demons, discord, and dissonance. He's the optimizer of opulence and opportunity, the undertaker of unfiltered utterance, the erudite earl of ergonomics, the liberated lion of lucidity, the maniacal monarch of mercy.
I want to do that someday.
The recognized ringleader of risque repartee, Mr. Joe Ugly. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you, sir.
morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
So 3 weeks we were soldiering on without Markeisha Ricks. She's back in town. She had some family business to take care of. Markeisha, when you're out of New Haven for 3 weeks and you come back, did it feel or look any different? Did you see it with fresh eyes? Did either the way did it change or did your perspective change?
3 weeks enough.
There's a lot of snow when I got here.
Was the snow where you were?
No, it was not. It did rain a lot down there, though.
2 letters. NV.
No, I mean, yes and no, because I mean, if you're gonna be south, like I would, the circumstances, yes, but also I'm gonna be south. I want sunshine,
Well,
and it rained the entire
Oh, it did?
time. It did, and on the day, and the reason I was gone, everyone, if I don't know if y'all shared, but my mom passed, and on the day we buried her, the sky wept.
Oh, man.
It rained
opened up
so hard. It already been raining all week long. It rained so hard on that Saturday. There was just mud and muck, and it was rainy. Oh, my goodness.
Well, you'll never forget that day, right?
No. People will say on the day that we buried my mom that it rained very, very hard.
Well, welcome back.
Glad to be back.
Well, you were in South Carolina, Markeisha. Now we're pivoting to something else.
Mm-hmm.
In North Carolina, the police made an arrest that had some resonance for us in New Haven.
Oh, my. What happened?
And it's one of those routine police arrests that yet make us think about the human condition. North Carolina, they arrested a man named Johnny Jermaine Johnson. And apparently he shot someone in a dispute at a club, allegedly. And the reason we know about him is he's from New Haven. Back in the 90s, as a teenager, he was part of a gang called the Jungle Boys at Quinnipiac Terrace. And they were in a beef with a gang called the Ghetto Boys, Farnham Courts. And the Jungle Boys came over to Farnham Court after there'd been a shooting at Quinnipiac, and there was a shooting. Somebody died, a double murder, I believe, and someone else got injured. And 4 members of the Jungle Boys were sent to jail effectively for life, 3 for life and 1 for 75 years.
A combined sentence of 365 years.
But fast forward 2 decades, and it turned out there was a very zealous prosecutor in those days by name Mr. Clark. He had done some hanky-panky at the trial. There go your eyebrows. Yeah. And he did some stuff he shouldn't have done, including putting on a witness who had gotten a deal to have served less jail time if he testified against these guys. And he lied on the stand saying he didn't have the deal. The prosecutor didn't correct him and didn't tell the defense. So they got freed in 2013. But here's the next part. In 2014, the state of Connecticut paid each of these young men $4.2 million.
Wow.
Yep.
$4.2 million there. And, Joe Ugly knew these guys. And so he was trying to give them advice, I believe, in how not to throw that money away. Am I right, Joe?
I was trying.
Yeah, so...
Absolutely. I don't
so
know
these
him
guys,
in depth. I just know him on the peripheral. But enough that...
Yeah, well, you and I know one of the people a little better
right,
than that. Yeah.
Exactly.
So they started a company called 365 Entertainment, 365 South, up in New Haven, Hampton. They still put on shows and parties, and they do it down there too in North Carolina, including some like good work in the community. They do some charitable stuff. And Johnny then got in a shooting. He got arrested.
Oh wow!
So
was it around like this All-Star CIAA weekend stuff? Or
No.
was it no?
It was what? No, actually, that
It was the last weekend of February.
February.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And All-Star was I believe was like the weekend.
So it
the
got
second-
people, people have a lot of different
Scandal.
reactions to this. When I say the human condition, a lot of us think if you win the lottery, does your life change for the better? Often it doesn't. A lot of times you think if someone just
More
gave
money,
me
more problems, Biggie said.
if someone gave me $4 million, right, would it change you? But also, like, how do you look at it? So cops all felt like they got out on technicality that they really did it. Other people say whether you did it or not, we have rules. So even the cops say that. It's important that you play by the rules. So that's why they got out and they served for a while. There's a lot of talk now. Michelle Alexander had a great piece about how do we deal with violent crime in the New York Times this week about how restorative justice, it doesn't send people away forever, but lets the families deal with the people who took away their person.
And it is
find ways
literally
to
what we are teaching
around.
children in this city, how to deal with.
And while you were gone, they actually they shortened the sentence, a life sentence of a man who committed double murder, a brutal murder as a Latin king in the 90s here, the son of a police detective he killed, and another, because of the change that the country has made when younger people commit crimes. They say their brains aren't fully developed. They can change. So this guy is in his 40s, JJ, Jermaine Johnson. Johnny Jermaine Johnson, JJJ, I guess. And so what does this tell you about all that? What do you think about all that? Norman, did you have any thoughts when you were reading about
But
that?
based on the situation, I know what you heard, but what you wrote and what this article write. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
No. Go ahead.
But from what I understood about what took place down there it was over a situation in a club over a
Female.
female. So
Which makes it even more tragic. Some of such as people
exactly.
have. Because he has stuff on his Facebook, staying the thug life forever and everything.
Right.
So people say, was he like still in the life? And you're saying it really was more like just a female dispute.
it was a situation. Now the question was that I'm asking was the weapon he had on him, which goes to your question. The weapon he had on him, was it registered?
Well, one of the charges was carrying a gun as a felon. So apparently, even if it was registered, because his charges, I don't think the charges were vacated.
Well,
So I think he allegedly broke the law not only by allegedly committing the shooting,
Or by
having this gun in the first place. What's he doing with the gun?
right, but that raises another question. Can the state of Connecticut get $4.2 million and you did not vacate the charges?
I'd have to go back and look at him and see what
unless
they would
there's
have.
other charges that were out there.
Yeah.
There
but
had
he
to
is
be other
considered a
felony.
felon. Yeah.
Yeah, because it seems like they wouldn't pay him if
right,
if
if they were-
we had to throw this out over a
Right.
technicality. Like it's not like they paid him and kept him in jail.
Right.
So it seemed like they would vacate.
There had
it.
to been another felony.
case
But
you
he
bring
might
up-
have had other
Anyway,
felons.
Joe, I think is bringing up a good point. So the first reaction was, gee, someone stays in life even with that money. The second question is whether or not he did, and maybe he didn't. Should he be walking around with this gun? But third of all, like, did it change their life to get that money?
Well, we're also looking at a snapshot in time, right? Like, so up until that point, as far as we know, he hasn't had any other problems.
Right.
He was
Right.
working in a legitimate business.
Right.
Now, mind you, people in clubs, unfortunately, seem to be very fond of carrying guns.
Well, it's because of the atmosphere. I mean,
Exactly.
the way the club scene, and people think it's because of the environment of people come in and they get violent or such. That's part of it. That could be part of the equation. But there are also people who target club owners, club goers because they know they have cash on them. You know,
Was he the owner of that club?
No, he wasn't.
He was the
patron.
Patron.
a patron, yeah.
patron.
But first of all, when you go to a nightclub, there's serious security out there, and they're checking to make sure
That
that,
you have
you
guns.
don't have any guns. So
this
how
happened
did he
outside
get
the-
in
This
there?
happened
this happened
outside
outside.
the
This
club.
happened
Oh, it
outside the
happened
club.
outside.
Yeah,
But
Just
here's
like it
another
happened
story.
outside of Roosevelt.
What about this
in
part of
Westville?
the right? What about this part of the story, Paul?
by the way,
what
they're
if
losing their license.
I know.
because people know he have money, and targeted him?
Do you think that happened?
It could be. It's a possibility.
But I
People
also
know because that's a big thing. People know you have money, and you know, you got a stick up boy mentality. All he's thinking about is how he's gonna get his.
So as tried as it sounds,
Somebody's phone is ringing.
I know that was Harry on the other line. Harry, you there? I thought Harry was there.
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay, Harry. So and as tried as it sounds, money doesn't solve everything.
No, we don't.
And I'm just gonna say, I wouldn't pathologize what happened in that one moment, and the fact that he's possibly facing prosecution and going to jail. Like I would take the money out of the equation generally and say that, you know, as far as we know, he's lived a crime-free life up until this point, where, you know, somebody's probably going to argue that the heat of the passion of that moment, you know, he reached for a gun he shouldn't have, but like Joe said, in certain atmospheres, people carry guns. They just do. So, like, I'm not going to pathologize, like, whether he was living a life of crime up till that point.
But let's look at this other part of the equation, and I'll give Harry a chance to speak. But what if, and I'm just putting this out there, what if it's a situation, you know, he's not supposed to be legally carrying a weapon because of priors or whatever it is that he has felony. He's not supposed to, but he understands the streets and know that if you have, some people may come to you, and this is his way of saying, hey, you know, I still got to defend myself. I don't know.
Harry?
I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah.
Did you have something to say there?
Well, Mama always said, stupid is as stupid does. And that's what I think of this situation.
Norma Rodriguez-Reyes?
Let me tell you.
Is your mama Forrest Gump? What happened?
when we're talking about, I mean,
sorry, Norma.
This issue behind, you know, if it happened because of a female, I mean, you're talking about passion there.
Right.
And sometimes passion has a tendency of
overriding
all of our thinking process, and we react to, and that's what happens with that's why a lot of young people even commit suicide, all behind passion.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, one of our guys here, he works as a bouncer, and I mean, he just came back from the hospital.
Really?
Because he
was in the hospital.
Yeah.
What happened?
He went to stop a fight, and the fights always have to be around the female.
A passionate situation.
Situation.
How badly was he hurt?
A guy.
So what Norma's saying is that men.
Easy now. That's not
dear
what she's
men
saying.
On International Women's Day.
That's not what she's saying.
Dear men.
That's not what she's saying.
Find a better way to resolve your conflicts. Like, because the reality is, like, I don't care what it's over. Like, that really is the bottom line. I don't care what it's over. I don't care what you're mad about.
Well,
teens need to be taught.
No, but what
grown men need to be taught too.
No,
apparently,
what Norma
this
was
man is 40 years
highlighting
old.
Norma was highlighting passion. So you're saying that women don't have passion?
I'm saying
women
the
can
woman,
be worse sometimes.
I'm saying
when
that,
it comes to that, there's a lot of fights, and the women are the one who starts them. A lot of times in these clubs.
What I'm saying.
Here we go, Norma blaming the women.
I know, right?
No, she's not blaming the woman.
Day,
just because it's International Women's Day don't mean that she can't tell the truth.
What I'm saying is the only two people who are in peril, the only person who's in peril is the man with the gun, who is alive and now facing charges and facing
in this situation. But when we're looking at what Norma was saying is across the board.
Well, let her finish the
okay, my bad.
Thank you, Paul. And so what I'm saying is that, like, so Norma's saying that young people do get impassioned, they get inflamed. I'm going to say all people get impassioned and inflamed, but what you do with that passion, how you choose, whether you choose to walk away or not, that's on you. Like, you have a decision to make.
Understand.
And you can make that decision every day. If you're worried about how somebody's going to perceive that decision to walk away, whether you're going to be considered a punk or you're going to be scared, or some people are going to talk junk.
That's the last thing. That's the last thing. Me personally, that's the last thing that I would ever worry about. I don't care.
And
what
maybe
people
you're
say.
at that place in your life where you won't work, and that's great. Everybody isn't there, but we need to teach people how to be there.
My thing about life is I'm not about that. But
and that's what
you know what?
We need to get people to.
In school, there has to be some kind of class or something that can
we already have that, Norma.
That can teach the kids how to deal with their emotions.
We have that, Norma.
Letting them know this is going to be happening at this age in your life.
Right.
And this is how you deal with it.
But the reason why
we
that really and truly don't stand, because
you mentioned it earlier.
It affects people at different stages in their lives, and sometimes something tragic could trigger it. Sometimes it's something simple could trigger these
But
things.
my point is, the things that we're teaching in school right now, and I think this is very key if we are truly teaching it, this restorative justice piece should save lives. It should.
It should.
And because what that Michelle Alexander piece is talking about is the very thing we're apparently supposedly teaching in schools here in New Haven, which I think is amazing, which I wish I had, and I wasn't a child who was involved in type of conflicts.
We're talking about people who then get involved in the conflicts and they try to, rather than expel them, have them make.
But we're just focusing on that. I think these are life skills, though. These are things that everybody needs to learn. They're social, emotional skills that you need for dealing with life. People are going to make you mad.
Right.
People are going to trigger you. How you respond matters.
It's going to make a difference.
How you respond saves lives.
I totally understand that.
And the idea that if you harm somebody, you have a responsibility to your community to heal that harm. And the harm can be very dangerous. Just like the Michelle Alexander piece says, like you have people who have killed other people who now have to sit with their victim and talk about what was going on in their life when they did what they did. And they have to find that place of compassion and empathy inside of themselves.
And how to make it right.
And how to make it right. Because if you watch the people who have to paper over their feelings and pretend like I'm so hard that nothing gets to me,
right,
then that person never gets a chance to like be a part of community in a way that is healing and that is life affirming. It's all about death and like pride and toughness. Like that's what it's about now. But you got to teach those skills at home and at school. Like it can't just apply when I don't want to get expelled from school.
Understood. Now, can I just interject? When we're talking in regards to this JJ situation, talking about Johnny Johnson situation, we really and truly don't know the details of it.
Nope.
And one of the things that the reason why I'm even speaking on it from this perspective is because based on what I heard, if it's a situation where the person it's a tough call. It's a tough call because, one, I'm looking at the fact that this guy, he had priors, he had a felony, so he should not have a weapon. Two, it's known that he has money, $4.2 million. That got around the world real fast. It's known he has money. So was he put in a situation where it was a challenge to you to go into a robbery? Was it a situation? All of these things I'm just putting on the table. I don't know. Let it all come out in court. I'm just saying that for this, I'm not looking at it as, although it's it could have been a moment of passion where it sparked from a woman, but it ended up, like I said, it was outside. It didn't start from the woman outside. It started from what I understood inside.
Last question.
But I just hope that he has the $4.2 million that he got. How long ago did he get $4.2 million?
4.5 years ago.
And
how many years ago?
If you still
he
got
got
4
lawyer
years ago.
money.
That he still
He's
has
got lawyer money.
plenty of that money so that he can give it to the state
Lawyer
or to the lawyers.
Norma just raised the last question I had.
hopefully.
If you had a guess, how much of that $4.2 million is left for each of these young men?
If I had to guess, individually, because knowing personalities, I would say some may have probably after lawyers' fees and such. I would say someone is probably sitting over close to 2. Someone is probably sitting at about closer to 1, a little over 1, and some might be under 1.
All right, so we all wonder.
Yeah, I bet that he doesn't have, because our people haven't been taught how to deal with money.
Right.
Like they always say, any fool can make money.
Right.
It's what you do with the money that you make.
So true.
Well, the first thing you should do is you should know that you're listening to Dateline.
I thought you were going to ask for a donation.
Make a donation.
They could have put $4.2 million right here. Here's a Pundit Friday.
Like if you wanted to make a good investment.
Really?
On WNHH-FM, your home for community radio at 103.5, live streamed at newhavenindependent.org. Well, I got a smaller figure for you. $93,502. That's how much money individuals donated to Mayor Harp's last campaign without Mayor Harp's campaign telling you who they were.
Oh, my.
So that a third of the donors who gave their campaign, their donations showed up in campaign finance reports, but the name of the donor was left blank.
Oh, no.
Justin Ellicker, who's running against Mayor Harp this year in the mayor election, has filed a complaint with the State Elections Enforcement Commission. He was building off some smaller violations reported in a very good article by Mary O'Leary in the New Haven Register, where every quarter, every report was late. And they weren't closing out the committee for years, or he started with new committee. So, obviously he's running against her for mayor. And campaign finance is an issue in this campaign because Justin Elko is running with public financing, and he's limiting how much people can pay him. You can give him only $370, not $1,000. And you cannot give him any money from political action committees. So he's made, and Mayor Harper's not participating in that program. So he's made, like, knowing who gives you money and what you might get for it the issue in the campaign, one of them. So he filed a complaint saying, you're not letting people know who gave you money. Mayor Harper said, and they said, this is how you run your city. Smoke. Okay. And she said, that has nothing to do with how I run the city. I run the city fine. We thought we had it right. When I signed it, I thought everything was in order. I guess it wasn't. We'll fix it up. 10% of teapot or something that matters?
I feel like at an intellectual level it matters, but to regular people who vote, nobody cares about this.
Should they care? If they care how their government works,
I mean, they
care
should, but they might not actually understand how their government works. So,
well, this is I'm saying. Like Justin Elliker has not yet presented positions that are that different against Tony Harper.
Yeah,
I guess
and this is the way he's trying to differentiate.
Except on some issues that I think you're right that may matter, but don't matter to voters. They matter in reality, but not necessarily to voters. For instance, how the city has enforced lead paint law. 3 judges have chewed them out for being completely incompetent. They even keep records by hand instead of computers and don't keep up. But I think it's true to say that that's probably not going to determine the election. Campaign finance at national level, Bernie Sanders raises a lot of money paying that issue because he says he thinks the wrong people run the government. And that doesn't prove that someone who gives money runs the government. I would argue that in some cases, Tony Harper probably said no, gave him money. John DeStefano did know who gave him every cent going back 25 years. It's amazing. And who raised it. But I don't think she does. But I happen to think campaign finance is a huge, important issue. I think you're right, voters don't care. But let's even look since this campaign started. The city just released a budget for next year. It had no tax increase. Almost nobody's talking about the budget. A year earlier, it had 11% tax increase. Everybody was talking budget and mad. And in fact, the reason some people think Mayor Harper is vulnerable this year, the only thing they bring up really, it's not about fighting at the Board of Ed, it's not about lead paint, it's about last year's tax increase. So this year, we don't have a tax increase in part because we took a very unorthodox move that is considered very dangerous for cities. We refinanced $160 million in debt. We did something called scoop and toss, where we got all this money up front so that we wouldn't have to raise taxes for a few years. But we're going to pay a whole lot more than that down the road for borrowing that money, which, according to most municipal finance experts, you're not supposed to do that for operating budget. You're supposed to borrow only to, like, buy stuff over time. And but nobody cares about that. So if Justin Elker goes out and says, hey, your taxes didn't go up, but they kind of did for your kids, like 3 times as much in 10 years, that doesn't upset people the same way as your tax went up right now to pay for something you need. Like, I don't think people should be so mad about the tax increase.
I agree.
Paul.
But I think they should be concerned about the borrowing.
Yeah, but they should be. And that's like Markeisha said, on an intellectual point of view, yes, people will. When we think about that, but the average person don't. And a great example of that, we just had a national example of that, where the the big tax cut of 2017 was put in place, and people were warned. It wasn't like your taxes are going to go up. You're going to get less on your return on your in 2019 after the midterm.
But you know why that gets me mad?
Nobody paid attention.
But you know what gets me mad? The truth is, what it's really going to kick in is after the next election.
Well, that's
what's
the process.
Kicking in, what's kicking,
whether it's a good
real,
one or not,
and that's real, and that's bad.
Yes,
what's kicking in now is the kind of thing that just makes you so frustrated that people get mad about. The only reason this year's returns are higher is because they started taking.
You mean not higher?
No,
I mean, there's reason people are getting less
tax
back this year is not because they're getting taxed more. That
right, it's because they're taking more.
It's because they're taking more up front. Yeah. So why are people so stupid that they're mad because you're not taking more of my money? It's just that today it looks like you're taking more because what people were thinking because in the beginning of 2018 when they received
received
those big tax returns, they were thinking, I'm going to get something like this or more, even if they're taking out more now, I'm going to get more back.
But you're right. But the real issue on that, and the reason Harry and I disagree, is I think that those are set to expire after the next presidential election.
Of course.
Except for the rich people.
Right, exactly.
So
the 1%.
So I'm mad that people don't realize this.
And corporations.
But this seems so much simpler. Like, you aren't getting less money this year. It's just that you're getting less money today, but you got more money 3 weeks ago than that. Harry, what did you want to say?
Well, I kind of think you're misdirecting everybody with how you're explaining the taxes, right? So the people who are getting less back for their refunds are actually getting to keep their money every paycheck.
That's what I'm saying, Harry. I just said that.
Different thing.
I just said that.
Right. So when you're talking about them keeping their paycheck, that means you're not giving the government a loan.
But I think it's so. I'm going to say this: it's a psychological issue.
I know a lot of minorities. They act like their income tax check is actually a savings account that they're putting it away. But that's not what they should be taught.
But again, Harry, can I just say this though?
Because Harry's telling you, he's telling you total nonsense right there.
But
okay,
this is what I'm going to say to what Harry's saying is that like it's kind of a psychological thing though, right? So like yes, you're getting incrementally more money, but because you get it over time and it just looks like a little bit, you don't get the psychological win of getting a windfall.
So
which of course affect the consumer confidence index. It has such an impact on it. It's how people spend. What's going to come back into the economy? It's all one big, you got to look at the whole picture. You just can't try to just itemize
But I get what you're saying, but I'm trying to get down to actually where the goats can get at it in the sense that, and with the same thing that we're talking about. So we're having this
but what he's saying is so incorrect, by the way.
No, you're incorrect, Joe, because the child tax credit has doubled. The standard deduction.
Oh, so if you don't have a child, then what?
So
there's some people who are actually waiting to.
Wait.
Okay, Marquise, you were in the middle of the point.
So my point is just this, like, again, we're having a policy discussion, right? At home, nobody cares about the policy discussion. They care about the results of it.
That's true.
And even though, but just like when you would, like, during, what was it? It was the Obama, the money that you got that was extra, like, to kind of, like, balance out the economy, like, during the recovery.
Oh, you're right.
So $2
so like people did, like, you don't feel it the same way if it's just a little bit. Like even
Marquise,
when you tell me I'm gonna get a raise, and when I finally see my actual paycheck and it it's like, oh, it's different. But if it's not substantially different, I don't feel it.
Right.
Like I just kind of absorb it and go on. And that's why the American savings rate is what it is. Because when people make more money, they spend more money and they never see the delta of the difference.
Right.
And then when they have to pay their taxes, nobody who doesn't really have money is thinking about their taxes long before April.
So,
only people who have money have the luxury to think like that.
Are you saying what both Democrats and Republicans who make laws assume when they try to time this stuff? Are people just idiots when it comes to money?
They are.
Absolutely.
They are absolutely.
No, it's not that they're
No.
idiots.
Or they're not idiots. They're ignorant.
illiterate. Let me tell you.
They're illiterate. They're
and they're financially illiterate. Yeah.
No,
And that's
but you
a
know
real
the
one.
other thing also is a regular person, a common person, okay, that's not politically involved, that's not in the loop of discussing how laws and all this other stuff. They don't care.
That's what I just
That's
said.
what
Norma.
They don't care. Because all they care about is getting their check on Friday.
So Norma,
Exactly.
That's what she was
Let
saying.
me ask you a
But even
question.
Because they
that
got
check
too
has-
many things to worry about than to worry about those little things. And there's nothing really that they personally can do about it.
And to add to your point,
no,
even
they
though
can.
even though, like Harry said, getting a big refund in April or after taxes is not a savings account because
Right.
you've given the we've conditioned people who don't have money to think that way.
Right.
We've
Because there
conditioned
are
them
people who
they're
literally
not they could give us
Because
interest
of
on it.
credit-
They just choose not
So that's
to.
how predatory finance works.
Exactly.
Oh, of
But
course.
Norma, forget policy, forget laws, forget being insider. Why is it so hard to understand that you're getting $20 less back tomorrow, but that's because you got $100 more for the last 8 months? Why is that so hard to understand? Now, maybe I'm just not understanding from a person who's
People
desperate
don't
for
have
money.
the time.
I don't
It
think it's so much
requires
the
a
time.
lot of
That's
time and
20%.
energy to go to meetings, to state your
No, no,
case,
no,
to
no, no,
write,
no,
to
no,
do
no,
all
no,
that
that's not
stuff.
what she's talking about.
It requires, and your common people that work 2 and sometimes 3 jobs, they don't care.
But Norma, I'm not talking about meetings.
No.
I just
Not talking
explained
about
something in 10 seconds.
Right.
You have $10 less tomorrow because you had $100 more
Okay,
for the
what
last
can
8
you do
months.
about it, Paul?
No,
What can you do about it
I
that
tell
you're
you
getting
what.
$10 less?
No, I tell you what.
Because you have
What-
$100 more
Yeah.
before.
Well, no, what we can do about it is have people understand that they should pay attention to what it is coming in
You don't
and
have to
what's
go to
going
meetings.
out. You don't got to go to a meeting. You just got to know what's coming in and what's going on.
All
You just
people
have to pay
understand
attention.
that
That's it.
April
Let's start
15th
teaching it
is
in
the
high
day
school.
in which they have to, the
But that's exactly-
last day that they have to file their
that's
tax
what-
return. And that the monies that they are going to get, since there's so much publicity out there on how to spend that
Yes,
that
piece.
income tax
That
return
piece.
money.
Is that piece.
And that's
Okay,
That's the
the
piece.
marketing.
people
There's
They
a
have
whole
built a
care
marketing
about.
behind it. Yes, you have everything from.
And it's
President-
true
you
what
got,
Dross said.
Get
Dross,
my mic on.
I was
Trump.
trying to let
Okay,
Marquise
he
talk.
mentioned that some people do have that as
You
a
turned off my mic,
savings
though.
account. Some
But
people
like,
do have it as a
but
savings account,
but
so they can
but
buy what they want.
to your point, Norma, and what it's exactly what Joe said, which is that there's a whole industry designed to get a certain, like, people with money don't go to H&R Block to get their taxes done.
No.
Right.
So like
Or payday lender.
Exactly. Most people who work a regular hourly job where somebody else determines how much they even get to work is not gonna. They don't have if there's an HR department, they don't know anything about it.
Right.
Like, because they have no contact with the corporate structure. Nobody at McDonald's is going to call McDonald's headquarters and say, "Hey, I think you guys are taking too much money." Like, even before this whole change in the tax law went to, I haven't even done it. And I've been getting back a refund. It's not a huge, but it's significant. It's nice at the end. Like, I don't know what I'm getting this year, but like in previous years, I get about $700 back every year.
It'll be less this year.
Exactly.
Right.
So, but I haven't come into the office. We don't have an HR department. We do have somebody that helps us out, but like, we don't have a department. We don't have somebody to sit down with and talk about, oh, I need to like adjust my withholding. Most people don't know what that is.
Right.
And it's so people don't have that understanding. So what they do understand is that every year, at the beginning of the year, really even before that, at the end of the year, like, you see these commercials that say, hey, we can give you your tax refund early. What they don't tell you is that's a loan. If they mess up your taxes, you still have to pay that money back.
Right.
So like, what Harry's point is saying is, like, we have to help people get conditioned away from that
Loan with
idea
tie-ins.
But
of
there's just too much.
expecting a refund. Like, what you want is to not get anything back or to have to pay.
Right.
And then looking at your check, like if your employer put on your check, a lot of us get direct deposit, so there's no like stub anymore. But for people who get a stub, it says, hey, because of you adjusted your withholding, you get $50 extra to like cue you in, sort of the way they did with credit card savings.
Right.
They say, if you keep paying this minimum, you're going to pay us $1,000 in interest. Like, that matters. Like, that type of communication at that level matters. And so with campaign finance, to come back full circle, like, you have to teach people how to care about that. Like, how does that affect their life?
There was another great example of that this week. But first, I want to remind people they're listening to Pundit Friday.
They are. Apparently, I'm back.
Oh, yes, you are.
Markeisha Ricks is
Apparently,
back.
Yes.
With
And in
Joe
full
Ugly,
swing.
Norma Rodriguez, and Harry Dross. So a few weeks ago,
Fired up.
I'm not sure if Marquisha's
Ready to
here for this
go.
or not. The most outrageous thing among many that Governor Lamont has done on the realm of the 1% is he named this guy to be in charge of
Is
economic
it the
development.
Sachs Goldman guy?
Yeah, Goldman Sachs
Goldman
guy.
Sachs.
So
Goldman
we were
Sachs.
talking about how nobody cares about this. A guy who like helped create the recession, did the exact kind of not just being present in the room, but actually devising a strategy to cheat the hell out of investors, lie to them about it, profit from it, bet against toxic mortgages that you're advising your own people to go on, saying you heard it on the street and then telling Congress that means we heard it in our room. And he's now made so much money that way that at 41 years old, he can say, I can work for free. Let me go work for the government and do something good. I say, go work for a soup kitchen. Anyway, when we talked about that, why don't people care
It's
about
that
that?
guilt job.
And it's true, like nobody cared. But then Martin Looney, while you were gone, the state Senate president said, we're not just going to pass this through. I don't know yet when we're going to vote on it. I have real questions about this. So now it's become an issue. There's been a change.org petition. He probably won't be stopped, but all other reporters and politicians continue to play it the way the Lamont administration plays it, which is, just because there was a recession, you're blaming everybody there. He just happened to be there. They're deliberately not paying attention that he was one or two leaders of a division that cooked up, ran the scheme, profited from it, and then gave a very misleading testimony to Congress about it. So we were talking about how do you get people to care about this, right? So I think it's still going to succeed the way that everything they're doing for the 1% Lamont administration, making everyone pay more except for rich people, raising prices, fees, and everybody but rich people, refusing to raise taxes on the wealthy the way they are in New Jersey, that kind of thing. But Lamont this week finally talked about on radio at WNPR when he said it was so insulting to us, and it really assumes that nobody can understand anything or care. Here's what he said.
That's exactly what
I
those
think
guys
it's fundamentally unfair to this young man what he wants to do for the state. He's talking about the opposition. Yup, Wall Street was selling some lousy products, but they were generally selling lousy projects to hedge funds. That doesn't have anything to do with David. Doesn't have anything to do with David. He was one or two people who ran the division that sold them. Okay. And then he said, Oh, I get it. A lot of people have Googled Goldman Sachs, and they say Goldman Sachs is a firm where he was, and they blame them, blame the firm or Wall Street for a lot of what happened. And Wall Street deserves some of that blame, absolutely. We leveraged ourselves to the eyeballs. But that's not David Lehman. David was 28 years old. He just showed up. These guys, meaning opponents, were seeing The Big Short, and they think Goldman Sachs was responsible for the crash. That is so insulting and dismissive. So not once did he address what people concerned about. A guy who got filthy rich by cheating people, devising personally a strategy and carrying it out to rip off investors, yes, included hedge funds, and then lied about it, and then bet against his own clients to make money on it, and made so much filthy, rich, stinking, dirty money crooked that he can now say, I'm so rich, I'll pretend I'm a good guy now. I want to go have some powerful state post. And you're not even addressing why people think that might not be good. You're just saying, well, they're idiots who don't understand, because they all come from Greenwich. Lamont comes from Greenwich. This guy comes from Greenwich. They all go to the yacht club and think all the poor other people in the state deserve to be struggling. And the only people they feel sorry for are people who have to pay the estate tax because they get estates of over $3 or $4 million. So they want to get rid of the estate tax while they raise everybody else's fees. I can't just believe that this guy was recruited by unions to run for governor, and the Democrats elected him. Why don't people care about this?
It is, and it's
It's a
not
lot.
just
I care. It hurts.
right,
Our state
and
is
it's
in
not just here.
shambles.
It's across the. It's totally across the board right now, and I don't. You're right, Paul. It's really annoying when you stop and think that people are not up in arms about.
And the governor's
we
talking
have.
to us assuming
And
that we're
what
such idiots.
Right, but that's what they're doing on a national, and you got to look at it. What's really going on? It's almost like we're becoming a corporation nation, and it's run by these guys, these Wall Streeters. I mean, look what
But
the
aren't they
first
like the
2
version
years,
of the new landed gentry, like at this point?
look what the first 2
Which have
years of
always
the
been in power.
of
The
the
new
Trump
oligarchs.
administration had. Look how many Wall Streeters were in that administration. Look how
But
many
there are Wall
crooks.
Streeters and there are Wall Streeters. There's some like
No,
Robert
we're
Rubin. Robert Rubin really did try through low-income support corporation, and they tried to have policy that did help people who didn't have.
And look how low down on the totem pole that goes. Let's talk about the guys like what's his name, Mr.
Wilbur Ross.
Wilbur Ross, or for Ari's.
Yeah, I'm with you.
You know,
But that just shows.
Let's talk about
I mean,
those
Harry's
guys.
not speaking up, but that just shows how it's bipartisan.
Yeah.
The Wall
Well,
Street
I was
cluelessness and the
I
1%.
was waiting for Joe to start naming off Obama's cabinet of Wall Street members, but he only goes to Trump. But my thing is
Tim Geithner.
if we would have elected Bob the Builder instead of Lamont,
Bob
we
the
know
Builder.
Lamont is a freaking rich guy, actually pretending to be a Democrat, right?
And he
At least
bought
we know
himself
Bob
the
the Builder
election.
was
Talking
a
about campaign
worker.
finance, no one voted for him. They voted against Trump, and then because of his $15 to $30 million he could pay out of his own pocket, everybody cleared the field for him.
But Stefanowski
I was
had his own money too,
Yeah,
right?
Not like Lamont.
Not as
he,
much,
he
no,
didn't
not
have. He
nearly.
didn't have a 10th or a 30th of
But-
what Lamont had.
I don't know. I guess I'm trying to think about this. Like, yes, I agree that the governor's handling of this is pretty abhorrent. Like he's being insulting. But at the same time, I think that like there are a few things afoot. Like in that, like there's kind of this culture of reverence for millionaires in the idea and billionaires. That idea that if you have a lot of money, you must be smarter than the rest of us, right? So like there's
Rather
this kind
than in
of
the case of the Greenwich crowd, they're just skankier. They either inherited it or they just cheated.
exactly,
True,
and
true.
we
And they
don't
bought the
we
government
don't
so they can get away with cheating.
exactly, and we don't acknowledge that, and
Word
we
of
don't
the day, skankier.
and we don't acknowledge how people like there are crews of people among the super wealthy, like not just people who like got $1 million in the bank. We talking about people who got millions and millions and millions of dollars, like so much money that the next 5 generations behind them can't spend it all. Like who are just, and so I don't know if you've seen a lot of the stories that there's been this kind of conversation about how could you reasonably tax people who have really a lot of money,
'Cause
and
they
it's
have so
not
many
because
Flat
they've
tax them.
and
I
it's
think
not because
everybody
they've
should be
gone-
flat taxed. That way, everybody pays their fair
If it
share.
were a true flat tax.
But and it's not that it's not, and it's really like getting at those people who, quite frankly, aren't making their money from like going to work every day or having created a business
So that's why
or
Will
something. They're saying your money makes money thanks for
They're
assets.
saying an asset tax. It's hard to tax those. And also, Warren Buffett says I should pay the same tax rate as my
Warren Buffett
secretary.
says the same.
I mean, there's some billionaires.
Warren Buffett says that. And
Bill Gates says it.
But if you pay a percentage.
Warren Buffett is not trying to pay what everybody else pays.
But he's at least trying to. I hear.
He at least is
I see some billionaires on the scene,
but he doesn't live it.
Okay,
you
but
know,
I
never
see
thought I would say this.
Rich people.
I never thought I'd say this.
You agree?
But I agree with Harry.
Yeah.
Warren Buffett preaches that nonsense. But if it's so much, Warren, why are you supporting the people who push the others? You know, for this stuff to be
But
all
you
in
know
the,
that. But you know there are actually
It
billionaires.
seems like I'm playing the hand I was dealt.
Exactly.
But you know there are actually billionaires who say rich people should pay more taxes than they mean it. The governor of Illinois.
Okay.
And the governor, millionaire of New Jersey is proposing it. I know in my own life people with that kind of money who believe strongly that politics has a fundamental challenge now to stop stealing so much money from the poor to give to the rich. The people
and are they putting, I'm sure in your world, they're putting their money into those lobbying conversations about people with more money spending money.
Because there's nothing that stops anybody from giving the government extra money.
Well, that's true, too. But then again, when you look.
Put your money where your mouth is and start giving them.
And it's not just them, though. They want to do it on a larger scale. That's a good point.
But, what do you mean on a larger scale?
Meaning, if you just put your money in, what about the other, 5,000?
Yeah,
people?
exactly. Who are like, I'm not putting in nothing. And in fact, I'm trying to get around these taxes right now.
I think Warren Buffett would be okay with paying what he paid under Reagan, under Nixon.
Yeah.
I mean,
which was more than he pays now.
A lot more. A lot more. In Connecticut now, the latest figures
show. It's not a lot more. There were greater loopholes that he stashed his money away in.
That's true. That's true. That's a good point.
Balance it out.
The loopholes are a good point. But still, in the end, the latest statistics at least say that if you're in Connecticut and you're a millionaire, you pay 7% of your income in combined state and local taxes.
Oh, could you imagine if you only paid 7% of yours?
If you're earning in the mid-30s, $35,000 a year, you're paying 21%.
Wow. And so we want to talk about like people's checks, like regular people's checks.
Stop?
If we talked about that in terms of like, if I pay what I owe and don't get anything back, if we do away with the idea of a tax refund because everybody pays their effective fair share, then people would actually see their checks. Like it would be a huge difference. Of course. And there wouldn't be that expectation to get something back at the end of the year.
And to be honest, it would do a lot for the economy, but the question becomes, is our current spending habits, would that allow us to actually benefit from it?
Okay, so yeah, there would have to be some converse like education piece on that side. But I'm thinking about if there were no like Harry mentioned loopholes. Like if we did away with an avenue for loopholes, like you close all the loopholes, everybody has whatever the tax rate is supposed to be for their tax bracket, what have you, and then that there's no expectation at the end that you would get a refund. Like we just get away from. And people have what they need. That would be transformational, not just for the economy, but for people's actual lives.
But this sounds like this whole formula is very archaic. I think it's time that, we come into
You mean the current formula?
Yeah.
The current formula.
Yeah,
absolutely.
April 15th, filing your tax returns, how it's done, all that. I think that's really an archaic formula. That when did that formula go into effect? And we're still in 2020 using the same formula?
I think it was after the...
Even Harry says he believes in aggressive tax. Yeah.
Yeah, even if we go to flat tax, it'll actually hurt the poor person because there should be some form of progressive tax.
But Harry, there are some people who say, like, I agree with you in theory, but I think if you had a true flat tax, which I think is hard without all these other loopholes, the poor would do better than they do now because they wouldn't be paying 1/3 what rich people pay. But I think you're right, Harry. Progressive taxing makes sense. I mean, in our state, the top rate is 6.99%. There is no progressive tax rate. There is a proposal among some Democrats to perhaps even go as much as New York, God forbid, pay 8.99% on your marginal income over $500,000 or $1 million, meaning you not tax that rate on the first $500,000 or $1 million, but above that, you would be paid up to 8.99%. It is a non-starter with Lamont and his crowd in Greenwich. He says that everybody else has to pay up more, which I agree, except the rich people, which I disagree. And they feel so sorry. You hear so many violin strings about, oh, people will have to move to Florida because if you tax them more, oh, they're
Bye.
going to have to go to low tax states.
Bye, Felicia.
No,
but
but
they're
you
not
know-
worried about everybody else.
Exactly.
Right.
No, but there was a year, I don't remember if it was 2
And
years
you're also
ago,
not
that
taxing
we
their
had
real
quite a-
money. You're taxing
we
their
lost
assets
about
of-
4 or 5 million millionaires that left the state, and that definitely
But that's all-
affected
but that was-
the budget of the
that-
state.
That in the short term, but there were people who came as well. There was an
Right.
inflow. That is a myth that we lost all this
Exactly.
money.
You know, I was just thinking when you said
They
they all
find
moved to
individuals,
Florida.
and that's real.
Yeah,
There's
they all
individual-
moved to Florida, but who's going to buy your house?
And also, we'll
Who
never,
gonna
we'll
buy
never,
what it
and
is?
we'll also never compete with states like Florida of no income tax.
Yeah.
But what we have
Yeah.
to compete, we lost companies to higher tax states like Massachusetts and New
We did.
York
Yeah.
because they invested in infrastructure. They invested in a tech camp, the kind of tech industry, tech support services and education. So that there's an MIT Route 128 where they wanted to
Well,
go
they
for
also got
Alexian.
10 to 12 years tax free where they're going. So,
Yeah,
that you have to add that into the equation.
yeah, but we did
But
that too.
Connecticut has to move away from punishing property owners
Mm.
because
We all agree with that.
that's what's killing
The property tax,
the
yeah.
state. People are moving away because middle class property owners are the ones being punished.
Right. Yeah, we do have too much reliance on the property tax. Okay, so Harry G. Droz agrees, tax the rich here on Dateline New Haven, 104.5 livestreamnewhaven.org. So how are people relieved about keto and keto? I mean, this is the biggest thing in the whole world. I mean, we're
About
talking all this
keto,
money.
like the diet?
No, keto and keto.
All right,
Everyone in
Paul.
the world, just their hearts were breaking for 6 years. Keto and keto are Rottweilers.
Oh.
And they were in
I was like,
Hamden.
what?
And they almost ripped to shreds an elderly woman. So
Oh,
some people
God.
beat them back. So there was a
Yes.
kill order, and they went to the animal shelter. Hamden doesn't have an animal shelter, so they went to the North Haven Animal Shelter, shares with Hamden. And the woman who owned it got everybody worried about keto and keto being a death row. No one was worried about the old woman. Okay, so for 6 years, she was kept alive. She had a campaign. She had so many followers on her Facebook campaign that she would bring all these politicians. They'd all come to pay the pilgrimage, make the pilgrimage to look at keto and keto on death row.
How long have they been on death row?
6 years.
Jeez.
So George Logan, state senator, was there. Republican, goes with her, and 37,000 people watched the live video of him just looking at keto and keto. And then the Democrats go, and Justin Farmer went, and one
37,000.
one Democratic white politician went and snuck in when he wasn't supposed to, and it caused a fuss. So the next time a politician went who happened to be black, Justin Farmer, they were worried. They had a new rule: if any politician comes, we send the police. So they sent the police, and
Oh,
he was worried about racial
no.
profiling.
Oh,
So the town. So at
no.
first I thought, because we just started covering Camden, I thought, oh, this is
Yeah, yeah,
hilarious.
yeah.
This is crazy.
It's like a
I
comedy.
mean,
of
we're writing
errors.
about things like Johnny Johnson is $4 million. The people got murdered and second chances for the other guy. And people are like crazed about keto and keto. Well, it turns out the poor elected officials in Hampton have to deal with this. Everybody this is a big deal. So in the end, the mayor arranged for keto and keto to be sent this week. There's a place in Florida where they get like rabid dogs and they don't kill them. And
How much did that cost?
it cost a lot. But anyway, so they were in the car on a road trip to Florida.
Oh, God.
Within an hour,
Oh.
1,400 people had commented
Oh.
on the road trip. Tens of thousands of people were following. Their birthday party last summer, Kato and Keto had little birthday hats with the string. They put hats on their heads like you have at a birthday party. 77,000 people had the birthday party with them on Facebook
Oh,
My
Live.
God, it's
I
amazing.
think this explains why like cat and dog videos are probably the most popular thing
So
on Facebook.
as of this week,
like-
I believe they might have arrived by now. Road trip is
Wow.
completed. Kato
I
and
thought you were going
Keto
to say
are
they ran
safe.
away on the way
oh
down.
yeah, or
Yeah,
attack the person.
Yeah,
or somebody
exactly.
attack
I
the
was
car.
looking. I was
and
looking at
stole
that
'em.
picture, and I was thinking they were looking out the window and thinking there looks like a good meal. I'm just saying. Any
my
thoughts on
gosh.
Kato and Keto?
Best wishes. I don't know what to
And I'm
do
a
with that.
vegan, and I thought it was crazy.
Best wishes.
Your best wishes.
Wow,
huh?
how did the lady survive the attack? Is she okay?
She survived because she wasn't okay. She went to the hospital. She survived because a whole group of people came and beat back the dogs.
Okay, but I'm like, has she healed from her injuries? Is
I
she?
think so. It's 6 years later.
Oh, bless.
But you know,
Bless her
I
heart.
really
I
wish,
wish
that
somebody-
these individuals that really, are so supportive of animals that they also took
supportive of
other
people.
human causes. Imagine
with
the
you.
effect that these human causes that they would have
they
if
put
they
this
took
much
on human
intensity
causes.
into it.
And it's really sad that a lot of our children now will not be able to go to a circus anymore.
But Kato and Keto are going to Florida.
No, and Keto going to Florida.
Wait a second. It's good. The circuses were cruel to the end.
Norma loves
I
the
used to
circus.
love to go to the circus,
You know,
and the children love going to the circus. But unfortunately, now can't do that.
Norma, now you've really.
You have muddied the waters.
No,
Norma.
she haven't really, because I'm like I've been quiet over here when you're talking about dogs, and I want to say
I
this.
feel like black folk
you
have
know
a
what?
really interesting history with dogs.
I'm
so-
going to say this now that we're
But-
closing out, because I'm just going to drop the mic after this. But I got to tell you, if you are a dog lover, I'm telling you, I have a belief. It's just my belief. I'm not saying that's just a modern day plantation mentality. I'm sorry. Use the bathroom when I tell you to. Walk when I tell you to.
Oh, I agree with
You
that.
go outside.
Oh, my
and
God.
You do whatever it is. And why are you doing all this? To keep Master happy. I'm sorry. I'm
Definitely.
just saying.
Definitely.
Joe is
And people
right.
say the way we treat dogs carries over to how we treat people, but we should care how we treat people.
We should.
People
We
don't
should.
care as much about. But Norma, you think they should be like the animals should be so mistreated to be in a circus so people can eat popcorn and say yay?
Or our parents, our
so
grandparents
tired of
grew
you.
up with circus. Now the kids don't get to see any
So
of
the
that
people
stuff.
used to say, or
Our
parents or
grandparents
grandparents,
also
You know?
grew up with
Slavery.
unvaccination.
But
We
it's
don't want
just
that either.
The
Slavery.
silent majority. The truth is that, you know what? In a lot of these causes, you have people that are very, very vocal, and you get how many thousands
what
of
you're
people
saying.
watching, and yet those other ones, they're too busy trying to make a living, trying to support their families to really come out and, fight for those things.
They
But
could go
no-
to
I
the
don't know.
Universal,
Elephants
I'm going to live my life and mind my own business.
Harry, last word
where
for
there I don't
Harry.
think are any animals.
Harry, last word.
I'm just saying those elephants look real sad to me.
All right.
That's
on
how,
that-
but that's how I feel about zoos. So there's that.
Yeah, I'm not too.
I
Oh,
don't
no,
like
Zoos-
zoos.
no, we're
zoos
not
are
going to
sick.
get no zoos either, right?
No, send those animals
And that's
back
what
to
people say
Africa
about
where they
slavery.
belong.
People say about slavery. Now we're not going to be able to have nice setup at our lunch if we can't have our
No,
slaves
but
anymore.
slavery,
Right.
No,
Or if we
that-
allow
but
our
we're
slaves
talking
to go
about
to the
human beings
bathroom.
here.
I do agree that I do value human beings over.
Yeah.
All right. On that note,
I value the people who pick the quinoa over the folks who just eat it.
all right. There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today with
Kilo
the best
spinach.
on Pundit
You don't care about
Friday
the
on
people who pick your
WNHH
spinach,
FM.
But
Yeah.
you care about
We got the
meat
best pundits
that-
in the world.
I can't hurt
We got Babs Rolls Ivy coming back next week. Go Babs. We got
Ooh,
Markeisha
Babs.
Ricks, Norma Rodriguez Reyes speaking up for the circus, Harry Rose, and Mr. Joe Ugly. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD A Plea for Peace. Now we know what it's like to be free. Just got to remember to book our flight or our road trip to Florida. Fly free with us all weekend long here at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.
Yes.